What if I told you that a small country in the heart of the Balkans, surrounded by NATO members on almost every side, is quietly rebuilding one of the most interesting and ambitious military machines in Eastern Europe? No, this is not a joke. Serbia, a nation of less than 7 million people led by President Aleksandar Vučić, is investing billions, signing deals with France, buying CH-92A armed drones from China, upgrading Soviet-era tanks with Israeli electronics from Elbit Systems, and building its own domestic weapons industry from scratch. And the story of how they are doing all of this, yet while officially not being in NATO and not being in the European Union, is genuinely one of the most fascinating military stories happening right now. Stay with me, because we are going to break it all down. So, let's start with the big picture. The Serbian armed forces, known in Serbian as the Vojska Srbije, are the official defense force of the Republic of Serbia. Right now, the military counts on approximately 22,500 active duty personnel. When you add the reserve forces, that number jumps to something closer to 50,000 people who can be called upon in a national emergency. For a country of Serbia's size, that is actually a fairly respectable number, and the structure is built around three main branches: the Army, the Air Force and Air Defense, and the Guard, which is more ceremonial but still part of the system. Now, the budget. Serbia spends somewhere around 1,500,000,000 euros per year on defense, which is approximately 2% of its GDP. That 2% figure is interesting, because it is actually the NATO target that all alliance members are supposed to hit, even though Serbia is not in NATO. That tells you something about how seriously Belgrade is taking its military posture right now. The armed forces are also built around a doctrine of military neutrality. Since 2007, Serbia has officially declared itself militarily neutral through a National Assembly resolution, meaning it does not intend to join NATO. And yet, Serbia participates in NATO's Partnership for Peace program, runs joint exercises with both NATO countries and Russia, and has even sent troops on UN peacekeeping missions in Lebanon, Cyprus, and Liberia. In fact, Serbia is preparing to conduct Serbia Exercise 2026, its first ever joint military exercise with NATO forces. So the neutrality is real, but it is a very active, very deliberate kind of neutrality. Before we go deeper, if you are enjoying this breakdown, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps this channel reach more people who are interested in this kind of content. And if you want to see more videos like this one about military strategy, geopolitics, and the hidden stories behind the world's armed forces, make sure you subscribe. We cover exactly this kind of stuff every week. Okay, back to Serbia. Here is where things get really interesting. Serbia's future military strategy is built around one central idea: never put all your eggs in one basket. The country is running what you might call a multi-vector defense policy, meaning it is simultaneously building relationships with the West, with Russia, and with China, buying weapons and technology from all three, and trying to avoid becoming dependent on any single partner. On the Western side, one of the most significant developments in recent years has been the agreement with France. Serbia signed a landmark deal for the purchase of 12 Dassault Rafale fighter jets. This is not just a weapons purchase, it is a political signal. The Rafale is one of the most capable multi-role fighters in the world, and buying it ties Serbia into French defense cooperation in a way that was unthinkable even a decade ago. Equally significant is the January 2025 agreement with Israeli defense giant Elbit Systems for a $1.6 billion C4ISR modernization program, representing one of the largest military contracts in Serbian history. At the same time, Serbia maintains its relationship with Russia. The two countries share a deep historical and cultural connection, and Serbia continues to operate a significant portion of Russian-made equipment. However, the war in Ukraine has complicated this relationship enormously, and Serbia has had to walk a very delicate diplomatic line, refusing to impose sanctions on Russia while also not wanting to isolate itself from the European Union, which it is officially still applying to join. Then there is China. Serbia has been one of the most active European countries in terms of Chinese military cooperation. The purchase of the FK-3 air defense system, the HQ-22 surface-to-air missile system, and various CH-92A armed reconnaissance drone systems from Chinese manufacturers has made Serbia something of a test case for Chinese military exports in Europe. NATO countries were not happy about this, but Serbia pushed forward anyway. The broader strategic vision is to modernize the entire force structure by 2030, a goal that includes new command and control systems, it needs improved logistics, and an upgraded reserve mobilization system. Now let's talk about the ground. The Serbian army, or Kopnena Vojska, is the backbone of the entire military. And when you look at what they are planning for the next decade, you can see a real ambition to transform what is currently a legacy Soviet-era force into something much more modern and capable. The current armored backbone of the army is the M84 main battle tank, which is itself a Yugoslav-made version of the Soviet T-72. Serbia operates several hundred of these machines, and the plan is not to replace them entirely, that would be far too expensive, but to upgrade them progressively. The upgraded version, the M84AS1, incorporates new fire control systems, improved explosive reactive armor, and better night vision equipment. This kind of upgrade program is smart. It keeps the tanks capable while avoiding the enormous cost of buying brand new Western or Russian platforms. Beyond the tanks, Serbia has been investing heavily in its artillery and rocket systems. The LRS-VM Morava is a domestically developed multiple launch rocket system with a range of up to 40 kilometers, which gives Serbian ground forces a significant standoff strike capability. Serbia's domestic defense industry has also achieved export success with the Nora B-52 howitzer, which has been sold to multiple countries including Bangladesh and Kenya. And this is part of a bigger trend. Serbia is putting real money into its domestic defense industry, a sector that employs tens of thousands of people and produces a wide range of equipment, from small arms to armored vehicles to guided missiles. The infantry is also being modernized. New body armor, new communications equipment, and new light vehicles like the Lazar 3 armored personnel carrier, which is an entirely Serbian-designed and Serbian-built 8-wheeled vehicle with excellent protection levels, are being introduced across the force. The Lazar 3 has proven so successful that Serbia has exported it to Turkmenistan, demonstrating the quality of domestic production. One area that deserves attention is anti-tank capability. Serbia has been expanding its inventory of guided anti-tank missiles, including both domestically produced systems and imported ones, understanding that in any modern conflict, defeating armored vehicles is one of the most critical tasks for ground forces. This is where the most dramatic changes are happening, and honestly, this is the part of the Serbian military story that I find the most compelling. Let's start with the Rafale deal because it really is transformative. Serbia ordered 12 Dassault Rafale fighter jets from France in a deal worth approximately 3 billion euros. These aircraft are expected to begin arriving around 2028 and will be based at Batajnica Air Base, completely replacing the aging MiG-29 fleet that Serbia currently operates. The MiG-29s, while iconic and respected, are old. The airframes are worn, spare parts are increasingly hard to come by given the situation with Russia, and the avionics are simply not competitive with modern Western or Chinese systems. The Rafale changes all of that in one move. It is a genuine 4th-generation plus fighter with advanced radar, long-range air-to-air missiles, and a proven track record in real combat operations. But wait, Serbia is not abandoning its Eastern partnerships in the air either. Alongside the Rafale order, Serbia has also been in discussions about acquiring additional aircraft from other sources and continues to maintain its existing Russian-origin air defense systems, including the Panzer S-1 short-range system, alongside the Chinese HQ-22 that we mentioned earlier. The air defense picture is actually where Serbia has invested most aggressively. Having been bombed by NATO in 1999, Serbian military planners have never forgotten the lesson of what can happen when an enemy has air superiority. The entire post-1999 military modernization program has been shaped to a significant degree by the need to deny any future adversary the ability to operate freely in Serbian airspace. This is why the Chinese air defense systems were purchased despite the political friction they caused. The new HQ-22 systems are integrated with modernized S-125 Neva legacy systems, creating a layered defense network that combines cutting-edge Chinese technology with proven Soviet-era platforms. It is about capability, not just politics. Drones are also becoming a major part of the picture. Serbia has been acquiring and operating various unmanned aerial vehicle systems, including both Chinese-made CH-92A reconnaissance and strike platforms and domestically developed prototypes. The Serbian defense industry has shown it can build capable drone systems, and the military is looking to expand this capability significantly over the next 5 to 10 years. Okay, quick pause here. If you have made it this far into the video, you are clearly the kind of person who loves this stuff as much as I do. So go ahead and smash that subscribe button if you have not done it already, because we go this deep on military topics every single week. And if you have a question or a different point of view on Serbian military strategy, I genuinely want to hear it. Drop it in the comments below. Alright, let's keep going. Serbia's most underrated strength is its domestic defense industry, and it is worth spending some time on the innovations that are coming out of it, because they are genuinely impressive for a country of this size. The Lazar 3 armored personnel carrier is perhaps the flagship of this effort. This is an 8x8 wheeled armored vehicle designed entirely in Serbia, built entirely in Serbia, and now being exported to other countries. It features modular armor, a remote weapon station, and a modern digital battlefield management system. The fact that Serbia can design, build, and export a vehicle at this level of sophistication is a significant industrial achievement. Then there is the PASAR's air defense network, which is Serbia's domestically developed integrated air surveillance system. Rather than relying entirely on foreign technology for airspace monitoring, Serbia built its own system that integrates data from multiple radar types, ground observers, and electronic intelligence sources into a single operational picture. This kind of C4ISR capability, command, control, communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, is what separates a modern military from a legacy one. Cyber defense and electronic warfare are also growing areas of investment. Serbia has been building its cyber defense capabilities and is developing electronic warfare systems that can be used to jam enemy communications and radar systems. These are the invisible parts of modern warfare, and they are just as important as tanks and fighter jets. Finally, Serbia has been working on precision-guided munitions. The ALAS anti-tank missile, developed domestically, has a range of over 25 kilometers and uses optical guidance, making it highly accurate and jam-resistant. This kind of weapon gives Serbian forces a reach and precision that they simply did not have with older legacy systems. Let's be fair and look at what Serbia is genuinely doing well. First, the multi-vector strategy is actually quite smart from a small state perspective. By maintaining relationships with multiple great powers and buying equipment from different sources, Serbia avoids the kind of dependency that can leave a country defenseless if a single supplier decides to cut off deliveries. We have seen what happens when countries are too dependent on one source of military supply. The lesson is clear. Second, the domestic defense industry is a genuine strategic asset. Serbia has maintained and even grown its indigenous weapons production capability in a way that very few countries of its size have managed. This creates jobs, generates export revenue, and reduces dependence on foreign suppliers in critical areas. Third, the investment in air defense is strategically sound. The lessons of 1999 were painful, but Serbia has clearly learned from them and built a layered air defense architecture that would make any future air campaign significantly more costly and difficult. Fourth, the Rafale deal is a generational upgrade for the Air Force. Whatever political complications it may create with Russia, the military logic is unassailable. These are among the best fighter aircraft available anywhere in the world, and they will give Serbia's pilots a platform capable of operating effectively well into the 2040s and 2050s. And fifth, Serbia's record on peacekeeping is genuinely positive. Participating in UN missions builds operational experience, improves interoperability with other nations' forces, and contributes to Serbia's international reputation as a responsible actor. Now, let's be honest about the challenges because they are real and they are significant. The biggest problem is the tension created by the multi-vector strategy itself. Trying to buy weapons from France, Russia, and China at the same time creates enormous interoperability headaches. French and Chinese systems do not talk to each other. Russian and NATO logistics procedures are incompatible. Maintaining, supplying, and training on equipment from three completely different military traditions is expensive, complicated, and potentially dangerous in a crisis when you need everything to work together quickly. The second issue is Kosovo. The unresolved status of Kosovo is a permanent source of instability for Serbia's military planning. The possibility of renewed conflict in the region has not disappeared, and the presence of NATO's KFOR peacekeeping mission in Kosovo means that any military action there would immediately put Serbia in direct confrontation with the alliance. This is not a theoretical risk. It is the central strategic constraint within which Serbian military planners have to work every single day. Third, the budget, while improving, is still limited relative to the ambitions. The Rafale deal alone is worth 3 billion euros, more than double the entire annual defense budget. Financing these acquisitions while also funding modernization of the ground forces, expanding the domestic industry, and maintaining existing equipment is a genuinely difficult balancing act. Fourth, the relationship with Russia is becoming increasingly uncomfortable. As the war in Ukraine drags on, the political pressure on Serbia to pick a side is growing. Continued close military ties with Russia are creating tensions with the European Union at a time when Serbia officially wants EU membership. This contradiction cannot be maintained indefinitely, and how Serbia resolves it will have major implications for its military posture. And finally, manpower. Like most European countries, Serbia faces demographic challenges. Attracting and retaining skilled military personnel, especially in technical roles like fighter pilots, cyber specialists, and engineers, is genuinely difficult when the private sector can offer better pay and conditions. So, what is the bottom line on Serbia's military future? It is a story of a country punching above its weight, trying to navigate one of the most complex geopolitical positions in Europe, and doing so with a combination of smart industrial policy, pragmatic multi-vector diplomacy, and some genuinely bold procurement decisions. The Rafale deal is the headline, but the real story is the domestic industry, the layered air defense, and the slow, patient work of building a modern, capable force on a limited budget. The challenges are real: Kosovo, Russia, interoperability, money, but the direction of travel is clear. Serbia is serious about its defense, serious about its neutrality, and serious about making sure that no one ever again finds it as unprepared as it was in 1999. If you found this video useful and interesting, please leave a like. It genuinely helps this channel grow and reach more people who care about this kind of content. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is the time, because we have got a lot more videos like this one coming. Now go ahead and watch the video that's appearing on your screen right now. I think you are going to enjoy it just as much. See you in the next one.